I gotta clip that. Hello and welcome to my 9th weapon guide for Escape from Tarkov. My name is Freakatoid, and today we will be covering the 762 AKM series of weapons. As one of the harder hitting and more popular weapons in the game, I feel this will be one of my most important videos. Let's start from the beginning. Similar to how I handled the AK-74, I'm going to start by explaining all the different variations that you will encounter. We'll start off with the base AKM. Now, if we add the dovetail mount to this weapon, we will have gone from the AKM to the AKMN. If we decided to use the folding stock version of this weapon, we would have the AKMNS. Still following? Let's make sure we get this. Within AKMNS, we actually have two features. The first is the dovetail mount, represented by N, while the folding stock is represented by the S. The last thing we'll do is decide we don't care about the dovetail mount anymore, which makes us go from the AKMNS to the AKMS. If any of that was confusing, just know this only applies to the AKM series of weapons. We will be covering some other variants of the 762 AKs that, for the most part, have both of these features included without the change in the weapon's name. These other variants include the VPO-136, RD-704, the Mutant or Mark 47, AK-103, and AK-104. In an attempt to streamline as much information as possible in a way that's still easy to understand, I'm going to quickly go over these other variants I just mentioned, and what they bring to the table. The VPO-136 will be the first variant of the AK platform you'll run into. It's used by scavs you may get into fights along the way with, and it being one of the first weapons that Skier will sell you right at the start of your Tarkov career. It's a semi-auto only weapon, so it's basically directly competing with the SKS in the early game. If you're lucky enough to obtain a master tool set and have built the level 1 workbench in your hideout, you can actually use this weapon to craft yourself an AKM. This includes any low durability VPO-136 you may have picked up from a scav, but you can also just buy the gun and then craft it into the AKM. This weapon overall is a pretty nice option to use for somebody who's just starting out due to how simple it is and gives the player a decent introduction into tap firing. The AK-103 and AK-104 are basically just modernized versions of the AKM series. They offer better ergo, accuracy, and recoil control when directly comparing them. I'm not 100% sure if this ends up holding true once these weapons are kitted out as much as possible, specifically the AK-104, which ends up missing out on some of the better handguards in the AK platform. While these slight differences may not seem major, even the game itself considers these weapons to be different enough to have separate mastery levels. I personally wouldn't pass up on better stats though, so don't be afraid to pick these weapons up. The RD-704 is one of the late-game variants of the AK platform, which requires level 4 mechanic in order to purchase with a tremendous investment. Fortunately, this big investment pretty much gives you the best ergo to recoil value in an AK. You can still mod enough of the weapon to call it your own as well, despite a fixed handguard and buffer tube. If you happen to find this weapon, keep it for that extra important raid. The Mutant, or Mark 47, is a mix between the customization of an AR platform with the performance of the 7.62x39 round. It's another late-game weapon with an even more tremendous investment. You won't even be able to purchase this weapon until you have reached loyalty level 4 with Skier and completed his quest named Bullshit. No, that's the name of the quest. It's okay to say in this example. Wielding a slightly faster rate of fire with one of the lower recoil values out of these weapons makes this thing an absolute treasure that you may see highly experienced players run on a daily basis. It's even lightweight in its base form, but that will quickly change as you mod it out with bigger barrels and handguards. With all of that out of the way, let's talk about how these weapons overall perform in each regard. The AKM series of weapons are a powerhouse, and is quite a strong choice for expected close to mid-range combat overall. Let's dive into the specifics of this weapon to give you a better idea of what's going on. The AK series of weapons are pretty hefty. Most of the base versions of these guns are above 3.5 kilograms, and it's very easy to exceed 4 once you stick some attachments here. The ergonomics are not terrible, but again, modding these weapons can very quickly make what handling it does have disappear if you aren't careful. This is probably the only real downside of these weapons, but due to the changes in the .14 update to Recoil, AKs are in a much better place in the game than ever before. It has a slower fire rate that ranges between 600 and 650 RPM. Still, the recoil is very strong with this caliber as well, so despite the low fire rate, you'll have some trouble controlling this weapon. Once you have access to some higher level attachments, you can easily turn this weapon into a decent contender at longer ranges in a full auto battle. While not exactly pinpoint accurate at longer ranges, this weapon performs exceptionally well up to 150 meters. The bullet velocity is a little bit less than desired, but to be completely honest with you, it can carry itself very well at close to mid-range. You'll need to lead a little on a moving target at range, but it's still solid nonetheless. The accuracy is also very good for close to mid-range at around 2.3 to 2.6 MOA average across the board. Again, unless you plan to snipe somebody at around 200 meters or more, you shouldn't have to worry about bullet drop or travel speed much at all. It's very solid. There is a reason that this weapon is one of the staples of most players' journey through Tarkov. Once you reach Prapor Loyalty Level 2, you'll have access to most of the 7.62 AKs in the game. Scavs and rogues also wield these weapons along with some set looting spawns for them. You really won't ever be too far away from these weapons or the attachments they have. The ammo can also be found on scavs pretty often, and in the very beginning of your Tarkov career, you really should be grabbing as much solid ammo from within your raids as possible. The AK platform is one of the most customizable weapons in the entire game. Seriously, look at just the handguard options this thing has. As of patch 14, you can also just decide to use some of the AR pistol grips for even more cosmetic pleasure. The best part is that you can share most of these attachments across each AK weapon, even the AK-74 series. There's no limit to what you can do with these weapons, and if stats aren't a primary concern, you can have a lot of fun with it. In the beginning of your Tarkov career, you will find out very quickly that you can't even purchase 7.62 by 39 ammo until you unlock Jaeger. The only source of this ammo that you will have available to you at the start is anything you can find off of scavs, crates, or other players. What you will find on other players and in crates is a bit unpredictable, but as far as scavs are concerned, you can get anything from HP, SP, FMJ, PS, T45, and US ammo. These ammo types definitely have some differences between the two of them, but T45 and PS ammo will be the rounds you immediately want to claim, as these rounds will pierce a majority of the armor you will come across and pierce all soft armor in the game. In the past, I would really only recommend using the higher penetration ammo, but since the recent changes to armor in patch 14, it became viable to use pretty much anything, so long as you know where you need to hit your targets with each one. HP ammo recently got some attention brought to it due to its ability to one-shot enemies to the thorax now that body armor doesn't protect all parts of the upper body anymore. I'll admit, it's one hell of a scary round to go up against now. SP and FMJ ammo are also decent if you need a little better performance against soft armor, while T45 and PS ammo are now incredibly consistent against most types of armor you'll come up against. PP and BP ammo will be late game ammo types that you use if you'd rather not worry about a plate. They're also much more likely to pierce solid cover for those cheeky wallbangs. None of the ammo in this chart is a particularly bad choice anymore. You just have to know what you're capable of when using specific ammo types. Even US ammo's unique trait of being a subsonic round has its quirk of being an incredible choice if you want to lower the range of this weapon as a trade-off for way less recoil. There is something for everyone's playstyle here. Pretty much all of the AKs in this game share the exact same sound profile as the others, except for the RD-704 and the Mark 47. Let's have a listen to the suppressed and unsuppressed sounds. The AK platform in general is an extremely popular weapon type to use. Both the ammo types' overall great performance with weapons that give consistent results have granted this weapon a reputation for being capable in anyone's hands. To get to the bottom why most players may gravitate gravitate towards using it, I decided to consult some experienced players in the community, and here's what they had to say.
It's an interesting caliber. We've got reasonable access to the PP round, which is decent. And then the craft for BP, which again is decent. You're kind of just upgrading the bullet. There's been some debate on whether or not it's worth it to even do it. I think it is worth it. The guns in general, I don't really like anymore. It feels like 7.62x39 was the least buffed of all the calibers of guns with this last wipe. I used to run a ton of RD-704 and a ton of Mutant, and they both feel super bouncy after 3 bullets into a spray. Bullets are still good. Access to bullets is okay. And in a world where everything's a laser beam, spear included, I just don't think they cut it like they used to. Still, good guns. I think there's always a soft spot for the Mutant, for sure.
I think they're fantastic. The ammo is where you run into the issues. The ammo is where you run into the issues because with the ammo, if you're not using DP or PP, you're kind of fucked. I mean, PS is good ammo, and also too, look at the SKS. SKS is a fantastic gun. I do like the AKs. I like the AK-103 a lot. The AKMN is good. The problem now is the ammo. Like I said, you can't get PP till level 4 and it's ungodly expensive on the flea.
7.62 AKs I feel like are a lot better now and more viable since the recoil changes as well as the ammo changes since they added PP and stuff to the game. I like all of those guns honestly because the big calibers like that, they usually tend to work pretty well. I say usually because nothing always works as intended.
I think in general MK is always the best one, but it's just expensive. 7.62 jumps too high on recoil, and I think RD is the perfect. RD is the better AK version. So if you're gonna pick an AK or RD, I'd rather pick a RD. But if you want to go balls out, go MK. I never used a single AK afterwards. Already came out.
762 is phenomenal, but they nerfed it where you can't buy PS, so as long as you can get PP ammo for it, it's solid. If you can't get PP ammo, it's doo-doo.
So the AKs, I think are really useful early. I think they're very useful early because you can shoot PS rounds, which are super, super strong. I recommend them to lots of people. You just do a lot of tap fire. As far as late game goes, I mean, there's a conversation for it, but whereas like a Mark 47 used to be an S tier gun, now it's like an A at best, probably more a B. And all the AK variants are like, they're fine. They're all like basically interchangeable to me. They're all cheap. They're cheap variants for it. I'd rather run the AK, the 704 over all of them. So I do like the 704.
Would you consider these weapons easy pickup for newer players and very useful for experienced players? Absolutely, especially with the Recoil update. The Recoil update has made everything a lot more like viable, especially for newer players too.
Yeah, I'd say they're easier to pick up for newer players. The ammo's easy to come by. You can get like FMJ. Sometimes you can get lucky and find some PS now, but you can't buy PS from like low-level traders anymore, which is fine because it got a pretty big buff. And yeah, for experienced players, you put a bunch of good mods on it, a bunch of good attachments, and yeah, it's a meta weapon essentially. MK47 RDs. I don't know how meta the other AK variants are, like AK-103, stuff like that. Yeah, I'd say RD and Mutant are two very, very good guns.
Yes. Especially because the AKM is so easy and cheap to build out to be a decent gun. It's like really solid. Like I think you can build out a decent one for around 70k, and then these little sniper silencer you can find in raid really heavy.
The AKM is easily one of the most recognizable weapons in the entire game. Its reputation for power and intimidation are not held back in this game whatsoever. The AKM is a weapon that you should be able to easily pick up and master. It may be a little slow and heavy for most of the rifles in this game, but it makes up for this in armor penetration. The damage is about on par with most other automatic rifles, which is more than enough to take down several targets with some well-placed shots. The potential of this weapon is further increased by the sheer amount of personalization and upgrades that the modifications offer. Overall, this is a weapon that anyone can pick up. Only those who dedicate themselves to it, however, will master it. While not the most complex or advanced rifle you have to choose from, it's certainly a weapon that is to be feared. Even the most plain-looking version of this weapon is still a menace to any well-equipped player, and it only gets deadlier with increased mastery, time, and modding. Invest yourself into this seemingly unwitting weapon, and you will be rewarded. I hope you enjoyed the video! Feel free to reach out and join my Discord if you have any questions regarding Escape from Tarkov. Be sure to subscribe.